Hey there, it's Lawrence Tam from lawrencetam.com. The most important thing regards to communication, regards to patients, is in the report of findings. That's the single most important point. And if you can do that well in the report of findings, you will be able to convert so much better for a patient to understand chiropractic care. This episode, we're going to be talking about the 3 biggest mistakes that most chiropractors make when they go into a report of findings. So let's get on with the show. So when it comes to report of findings, this is what this episode is going to be about. There's often mistakes that most chiropractors make. I made them many a times through my entire career, but I want to help you do that today. But before we get started, I want to really kind of show you this particular academy that has been blowing up right now. We got hundreds of chiropractors from all around the world, students, associates, new grads, joining in the academy, which is just below here. Go to lawrencetam.com/academy. And so I'm doing a 12-week free, no upsells or anything. I just want to give content that really helps associates and new grads, and also owners and principals who are helping their chiropractors and helping coach them to get them better, from 0 to 100. You want to make sure you join the academy. We just done week one, and you want to definitely come on board. So make sure you go check that out. So today's video, what we're going to be talking a little bit about is about the 3 biggest mistakes when it comes to report of findings. So let's think about a couple of key facts, right? Number 1 is that your ability to communicate as a whole, as a chiropractor, is the most important thing that you can do as a chiropractor, right? I believe more so than your technique and your skill set. That's just me. The second thing that you need to understand is that the most important time, if you're going to get the communication right, is actually in the report of findings, because that is when the patient's most conducive to hearing what you have to say and wanting to know how it can help them. And they're most likely, in most circumstances, the most amount of pain as well, to want to find a solution. So how you communicate at that point is going to be super important. So therefore, you should technically, right, put most of your emphasis in learning how to master that skill. But from what I can tell, most chiropractors don't spend that much time focusing on the report of findings. If anything, they're focusing more on what? Getting more new patients. How do I get more Facebook leads? How do I, increase my marketing campaigns? And you probably spend more time on Instagrams and Netflix and Facebook and all that other stuff, which I get it's fun, but the thing is that I honestly feel that if there's one skill I could teach any chiropractor, is the ability to communicate during the report of findings. And in this video, I really want to kind of highlight some of the 3 biggest mistakes, because I see this over and over and over again. And it's sometimes, if you can fix this mistake, it could 10x your ability to be able to convert your clients. It's that powerful. So I want you to kind of pay attention to these 3 elements, because it can literally change not only your profit and your patients and your practice. Forget about that. What it does do is increases your patient's ability to get results. Because if your patient stays longer, they're going to get better results from you, because they're going to be under more chiropractic care, which means that they're going to get to the result they actually came in for. So therefore, your abilities, it has nothing to do with your skill as a chiropractor. I honestly believe has a lot to do with your ability to be able to communicate and help someone to understand it. So let me get to it. So let's go through the 3 biggest mistakes I find that most chiropractors make. The first one is what I call preach versus teach. So let me just kind of go through this with you one by one. The preach versus teach. What are we doing? What are we doing when we're as chiropractors? What I think a lot of chiropractors are doing, this is my opinion, of course, is that you are preaching. And what that means you're doing is that you're preaching your values instead of teaching. And so what happens is that when you're preaching is you're telling them this chiropractic story based on your values without taking any consideration of what the patient's values are. That I know in theoretically you understand that, but I want you to really focus in on what that actually means. Because what's important is that when you're teaching, not preaching, is that what you're doing is that you got to step off your high horse on chiropractic and really kind of understand the true value of what the patient's worldviews are. And these circles represent the worldview, and you have to understand chiropractic from their point of view. When you can understand from their point of view, you're going to have a much better chance of really kind of focusing on exactly how they feel or what they think and what their values are. Because more times we focus on our values and only see it from our perspective, we're preaching, telling how great chiropractic is. Of course it's great because you're a chiropractor. So you have this inherent bias. So if you want to build trust and engage the client, you have to understand what they think, what they're going through, what they think about health and wellness, and what this back pain or neck pain or headache, whatever it came in with, what that means to them first, and how you got to get inside their head and then try to find some way to be able to relate your ability to solve their problem in their eyes, in their world, because they haven't spent years studying what you have studied. So that's number one. If you don't do that, most of us are just preaching at them and they will ignore you. No one wants to feel that. If you put yourself in another situation, whether you go to a doctor's office, maybe you are the patient and the doctors kind of just tell you how things are supposed to be, you're just going to be turned off. That's exactly how your patients feel. So stop preaching. What you need to do is start teaching. All right, so let's go to the second biggest mistake that I find most people are making. Second mistake I think most people are making is what I call tell long, sell short. So let me explain this, because I guarantee you this is what majority of the chiropractors are doing. So what happens is that you kind of see this vision for them, right? You see the vision, and what you're thinking about is like you're telling them that they should be focusing on that this is a long-term solution. You might say like, this is going to take, you ask them a question like, how long do you think this is going to take? And they might say, it might take, 6 months, or it might take a year. So you tell them this great story and you agree with them because yes, it's going to take a long time. You understand that. And you know that that's going to take a long time. So therefore, this whole process is going through that process. So therefore, it's going to take that long time. But what you're doing is you're telling them long, but what happens is that, though, when you give the recommendation, you know what happens when you give the recommendation. What you're doing is that you only give them a recommendation that you think they can afford or you think they will accept you at, which means that you sell them short. So instead of talking this whole game of like 6 months, what you do is you kind of go, hey, let's get you through the next 12 visits. Or maybe let's get you for the first 3 visits. And let's just see how you go. So you tell them a long game and they get agreement to the long game, but you sell them short. And trust me, it's not just you. It's a lot of chiropractors. A lot of my clients do this as well. And they don't realize they're doing it. It's just because over time you start to lose that ability. And when you tell a long game and you talk about chiropractic as being a lifestyle, or talk about like how long it's going to take, but you don't recommend them to get to that point, then you're selling yourself short. You're selling them short. Let me hear you correctly. You're selling them short, because then you're not actually telling the truth. You're only telling a partial of the truth, and you're only telling them to a point of what you think they will accept you at. Listen, when you're a chiropractor, you're a trusted advisor, which means that you actually have the ability to be able to want to make sure that they trust you as the advisor. They want to know that they can listen to you. And so, which means that as a trusted advisor, you need to tell the truth. And when you can tell the truth, then they will actually go, I believe this person, and they know they have my best interest at heart. But when you only give them a few visits here, when they know it's supposed to take 4 or 5 months, and you only give them a month schedule, you're not telling the truth. It's a lot harder to convince them later, which is what most people are doing. That's what we call bait and switch. Get them in shorter and then try to sell them the long thing. No, that's not what it is. You just tell them the truth and let them decide. Because if they choose not to accept the care, that's fine. That's their choice. If they wanted to get to X, it's going to take this long. Let them choose to get to that point. So I hope that makes sense, because this is one of the fundamental things. If there's one thing I'm going to teach you today out of the 3, this is the one that we got to start being more congruent with and being more aligned with. All right, so let's go through the third one. The third one here is what I call robotic prescription. And the reason why I call it robotic prescription is because this is exactly what we've been taught. A lot of people, what we're doing is we're being taught on scripts, and this is how you should do it. And I guarantee when you think about this, I want you to think about this, is when's the last time you actually went through your report of findings and go, like I've actually had to tweak this. Most of the time, you've actually just been taught it once, you learned it once, and you've probably been doing the same one for years and never actually thought about it. I was actually one of my clients who's been in practice for like 25 years, and we started talking about the report of findings. Like, he's saying things that he's probably didn't even know when he started. It was probably 20 years ago. And so we don't question our thinking. So what we got to do is we need to start to think about, are we being a robot and not being a human being? So here's the third part. It's about what we don't want is make the mistake of being a robotic prescription. What we want to do is we want to be in a place where we can actually tell the truth, but in a way that it has empathy, humanity in it. So why do we do this? Well, first of all, let's think about how we actually come up with the communication. First, we have, that's a terrible heart, sorry. We have a heart, and we have the right intentions, right? We have the right intention. So we think of a thought of what we want to communicate. So we have the intention of that thought. And then so what we do is then the next thing we do, we got to say, we got to somehow, this, by the way, I'm going to just pre-frame this as that this is a terrible brain, but I just want to let you know, but that's a terrible brain. But you got to then use your brain. Once you have the intention, you have your brain to kind of go, I got to create words and phrases, right? That makes sense. So I got to take it from my heart. So I just want to take it from my heart or my brain. I go, okay, I need to think, like, what's my intention of telling this patient? And then therefore, then I got to create it in my brain, the words and phrases. And then the last thing I need to do, of course, is that I'm going to use a microphone, right, my voice, and be able to kind of create some sort of sequence of words so that of those words and phrases in a way that the patient understands my communication. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I have the intention, create words and phrases, and the sequence. But here's what happens over time. If you've been in this game for long enough and as a chiropractor, what we typically do, we spend a lot of time here. Right? All our time is spent here in this realm. That's a clock, by the way. And so what we've forgotten is that we've forgotten about the intention of why we're actually talking to them about. Because really the reality is that this is the why, this is the what, and this is the how. And oftentimes we're so focused, and this is what script does, is that the scripts focus so much on the what and the how, but we've forgotten our why. And we got to remember, what is the point of the report of findings? What is the point of your communication? Your point of your communication, remember, is that we need to, let me think about this. When you go through these words and phrases, the reason why we do that is because scripts work, right? They do work because we gotta have to create some routines and habits to create shortcuts in our brain to be able to speak and communicate that. And we learn by rote learning, so we can remember. So we remember over and over again. But because of that, we remove ourselves away from our intentions. And so what I think we need to do is go back to our intentions. Every time you communicate, we need to kind of remember for you to do three things. You need to learn to engage with your patients. You need to learn to adapt to their situation or the person in front of you, because it depends on the type of person that they are. And number three, you need to learn how to respond. How do you respond to their questions or their emotions on how they react to your communications? If you don't, you're not going to get anywhere. And so this is what is so important for you to, it's important to have scripts or some sort. I don't use scripts. I don't teach my clients. I teach them about frameworks so they know and utilize their own style of communication. You don't want to be like me. You want to be like yourself, and how you can communicate a chiropractic, given those frameworks, and allow you to communicate that. But the biggest thing I want you to get out of this last point is intention. Before you step into a report of findings, what I would suggest you do is look inside yourself and go, what is my intention for this client? And my intention is just to purely get them out of pain, or is it my intention to help them get to better version of themselves that they never even thought possible? Those are two different intentions, which means that your recommendations are going to be very different. Be clear on your intention, and then go into an initial consultation or report of findings and every single adjustment with that intention in mind. And only speak the truth to that intention, not to the lower intention of what you think they might want to hear. Okay? So, 3 specific things we talked about today. 3 biggest mistakes. If you missed them, go back to the start, because I think these are the fundamental things. If you shift every single one of these, your report of findings, your communications are going to be so much better when it comes to your clients, and you will literally change not only your life and your practice, but more importantly, your patients' lives. So I hope that's been helpful. Again, if you are want to learn more about this stuff, I got a 12-week program for free. It's lawrencetam.com/academy. We're doing weekly live videos on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. in Sydney time. But if you know that you want some coaching, you might want to watch this promo. Talk to you soon.
It's all well and good to have a successful practice, but in the grand scheme of things, I want to make an impact.
The biggest thing that it's enabled me to do is to develop better relationships with people.
The reason I joined was because I was feeling a bit isolated in practice.
Now I feel like I have a tribe.
Lawrence definitely provides a really good insight from outside of my square.
You really start to find your true identity. When you're part of a group that supports you, which is what I feel Nitro does, you get some quality results.
I was caught up in the hustle side of chiropractic, so now having that freedom, still being just as busy and even more successful.
I think that we all elevate and rise together.
It really allows me to face my own fears and blockages.
It's about being with like-minded people, but being about people who want the same thing, which is like this willingness to support each other and hold each other accountable at the same time.
We went from seeing an average of 140, 150 people to seeing now 250 people.
I do have the confidence to, have that voice and make those changes, and I definitely wouldn't have been able to do that without Nitro.
It's not trying to create me to be something else, it's trying to create me to be the best version of me.